Hi, greetings. My name is Jorge Roque, and I'm a Jesuit in St. Louis. And Mr. Hyland asked me to talk to y'all today to talk about Spanish. So, first, I'm going to say a little bit about me, go through the alphabet with pronunciation and examples, and then talk a little bit about Mexican culture. Just a bit, all right? Okay. So first things first, yeah, again, my name is Jorge Roque. I'm a Jesuit, and my family is from a place in Mexico called San Luis Potosi. San Luis Potosi, kind of like the St. Louis of Mexico. It's in central Mexico. It's one of the bigger cities in the top 10 or 15, but not the biggest. And they moved to Chicago before I was born, and that's where I was born. And then when I was a small kid, we moved to McAllen, Texas, which is on the border. So that's where I grew up, on the border, which is very much a mix of Mexican and American culture. And though most people speak Spanish, obviously everyone or most people speak English, and there's just a lot of blending the two languages together. Uh, so that's my background. That's where I'm coming from. Okay? All right. So the alphabet. I'm going to go through each letter and then give you an example. Okay? All right. So the letter A in Spanish is A. A. One example is the name, a common name in Latino culture is Angel. Angel, which means angel. It's a common name for men, especially. So my brother's middle name is Angel. Angel. There's also a common phrase in Spanish, a kind of slang that means kind of like, okay, hurry up, let's go. And that phrase is andale, andale. If you want to hurry someone up, if you want to say, okay, come on, hurry it up, you say andale. All right, the letter B in Spanish is B, B. Common example, Barcelona, Barcelona. Like the soccer team, like the city in Spain, Barcelona, or barco, barco, like boat, which means boat, barco. Easy. C. Se, se, as in correr, correr, which means to run. Or caballo, caballo, which means horse. So C in Spanish is more like a K in English. It's mostly a hard sound. Caballo, correr. The letter D is de, like dado. Dado means dice or die. So one die, dado. Or the verb for sleeping is dormir, dormir, to sleep. Okay. The letter E is e, e. You kind of need to, pull your cheeks back. E. Elefante, elephant, elefante. Another one is espuma, which means foam, espuma. Okay, easy enough, right? We're getting through it. All right, F in Spanish is efe, efe, such as frijoles, frijoles. So beans, frijoles. Or strong, fuerte, fuerte. Okay? The letter G in Spanish is he. Grito, grito. Like a yell, a scream, a holler. A grito. The verb gritar, gritar. Or common enough, cat, gato, gato. Okay? All right. The letter H in Spanish is H, H. And H in Spanish is mostly silent. You won't you won't hear it pronounced too explicitly. It's mostly silent. So for example, the word for hunger, in English we say hunger. In Spanish it's hambre, hambre. So that word begins with H, even though what you first hear is an A. Hambre means hunger. Or hamburguesa, hamburguesa, hamburger, right? So it's silent, and that's how you say H. Okay, I in Spanish is E. So that's a little confusing because I in Spanish is like E in English, or a certain type of E in English. So the word for church in Spanish is iglesia, iglesia. So really when you pronounce it in a word, when you use it in a word, a lot of times it sounds like just like our letter E. And that's for the most part true. Iglesia. Okay? All right. The letter J in Spanish is jota, jota. So a lot of names, right? A lot of names start off with the letter jota. Jorge, right? Jesus, Juan, Job. So there is where, the letter J or jota sounds a lot like RH. Jorge, Jesus, Juan, Job. Okay, simple enough. K in Spanish is ca, ca. Kilómetro, kilometer, kilómetro. Easy. All right. L, L is L. Leer, leer. So that's the verb to read, leer. A lot of words too use double L's, two L's right next to each other. So lluvia, lluvia, two L's right next to each other. Lluvia means rain, right? So that sounds a lot like our Y, right? Lluvia. To say tire in Spanish, again, double L, llanta, llanta. To say key, llave, llave, a double L, double L. So that's something you gotta know, be aware of. It's a specific pronunciation. Okay? All right. M in Spanish is M, M. Easy example, manzana, apple, manzana. Or a great verb in Spanish is to chew, masticar, masticar. Okay? All right. N. N is N, of course. And one word that starts with N is nido, nido, which is nest. Nido. Okay? Now the next one is new for English speakers. Enye, enye. You really have to kind of enye. Yeah, you have to kind of use your face for this. So this letter is more, it doesn't begin too many words, but it's used within words, right? So like one example is to say nail, like a fingernail. I'm sorry. To say fingernail is uña, uña, uña. If you want to say nail, uña. It could also refer to like a pick, like a guitar pick, uña. Another example is to say Spain. The country Spain is España, España. Right? So that's a new one if you're just learning Spanish. O in Spanish is o, o, like ojo. Yeah, so like eye, ojo, ojo. The letter P is pe, like pez, which is fish. Pez. Or to say beach is playa. We're going to go to the beach. Playa. Playa. Okay. Q in Spanish is Q. Q. Easy example is to say cheese. Queso. Queso. So that starts with Q. Queso. R in Spanish is R. R. Easy example is rey. Rey, which means king. King. Or reina, which means queen. Reina. Rey. A lot of times too, just like the L, you'll see two R's together. So to say dog, you say perro. Perro. So this is you got to roll your R's. If you're struggling with rolling your R's, a trick I learned from someone else who was teaching Spanish is to try and make this kind of machine gun sound with your mouth. Yeah, that's the way to kind of get going. Or an engine, right? That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do to kind of get used to it. Your mouth has to kind of get used to a different logic, really, when you learn a new language, and that's definitely true for this one if you're coming from English. Okay, all right. S in Spanish is ese, like sol, which means sun, or sandia, which means watermelon. Okay, T in Spanish is te. And there's the way to say possum in Mexico is tlacuache. So it's a subtle T, TL, tlacuache. Or it's to touch, right? Tocar, to touch. Okay. To say you in Spanish is u. Like uvas. So that's grapes. Uvas. To say V in Spanish is ve. So there's another common expression used a lot is vamos, like let's go. Vamos. All right. W in Spanish is W. So that's tricky to say. W. It's literally double U, like two U's together, right? W. And a lot of words that feature W prominently in Spanish are words that come in from English that, because of technology, are just common parlance in every Latin American country. So for example, WhatsApp. I mean, that's the app. WhatsApp, right? To communicate, especially very convenient if you're talking to people in another country. Wi-Fi, el Wi-Fi, So examples of W, words that begin with W in Spanish, are often words that people use in Latin American countries, for example, but they're things that you would know, things that have come in because of technology. Okay? All right, the next letter is X. So that's X. X. There's a city in Guatemala that is named Xela. So that's Xela. Second biggest city in Guatemala. Xela. And in certain countries, right, the X has that pronunciation. Shh. because of the roots from indigenous languages. That's so a lot of times when you see an X, that's what it is. Shela, shela. Other times it's almost like an H. So the easiest example is to say Mexico, right? In Spanish is Mexico, right? So it's pronounced like RH, Mexico, right? That's X. Y. Y in Spanish is Y. Y. Easy example is yogurt. You want a yogurt? Yogurt. Un yogurt. Okay? And finally, the last letter, zeta. Zeta for Z. Zeta. If you want to say shoe, zapato. Zapato. Or carrot is zanahoria. Zanahoria. All right, the letter Z isn't as distinct as it is in Spanish. I mean, sorry, as it is in English. For it's not like that. As opposed to just a very kind of harsh, buzzing sound, buzzing sound. It's more like a hard S. Zapato, zanahoria. Okay. All right. Well, that's the alphabet. Um, that's the alphabet. So, no problem. It's simple enough. There's a few things that'll kind of stretch you if, this is your first time being exposed to them, but it should be pretty simple. It should be pretty easy. Um, uh, that's, the basic stuff for the alphabet, for the language. You obviously can't progress in the language if you don't know it. And at the same time, too, while you're doing that, it's also good to learn a little bit about the cultures that speaks the language. So obviously, um, Spanish spoken across several different continents, all of Latin America and especially Spain. And it's good for you to know that sometimes some common nouns will have a different word depending on which country you're in. Um, I didn't really realize this until I was in Guatemala as a Jesuit. And when I grew up, I had only visited Mexico often to see family. And that was my only exposure to really a Spanish speaking country, just Mexico. But in Guatemala, which is just south of the border, just a different idiom, so to speak, right? So, for example, the word straw, like a drinking straw, will have a different word in almost each Latin American country. I don't know the word straw in Guatemalan Spanish. I know it in Mexican Spanish. Popote, popote. That's the word I know for straw, but that's not going to be the word that is going to be used in, Argentina or Cuba. Okay, popote. That's straw in Mexico. Another common word that is used a lot I've heard it all the time, is ojalá. It's an expression, ojalá. So you use a phrase like this, ojalá, when you're expressing hope, but in a more casual way, oh, well, hopefully it'll stop raining tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll see, hopefully I'll see my friends tomorrow, something like that, you'd say ojalá. And the root of that word is actually very interesting because Spanish has takes a lot of its roots from Arabic. There's a strong Arabic influence in Spanish. So ojalá literally, means Allah, right? Like the Arabic word for God, ojalá, oh, may God will it, right? Ojalá. Something else to know is I can say this is true of Mexico and true of Guatemala, but it's incredibly formal, very polite, very courteous. So if you're being polite when you introduce yourself to someone, especially when you're receiving someone in your home, when you're showing hospitality. You say, a tus órdenes, a tus órdenes. That's really common, a tus órdenes, literally like at your orders, which in English, of course, sounds kind of jarring, kind of very, almost like too much. But in Spanish, at least in Mexico and Guatemala, that's just being polite, a tus órdenes. Um, I'm here. Yeah, if you need anything, let me know, a tus órdenes, a tus órdenes. Um, Again, very polite. I think it's a lot more common in Mexico and Guatemala than you hear in English to say God bless you. And not as a response for like sneezing, but I mean as like a greeting or as a despedida, as a farewell, right? Dios te bendiga. Dios te bendiga. God bless you, I mean, again, there's just a strong element of courtesy. Um, There's also several each country has this too, more colloquial words used for everyday life, So a word in Mexican Spanish, for example, is metiche. Metiche. What is a metiche? A metiche is someone who is very nosy, you know, very nosy. If you're asking about, oh, why this, why that, about someone else's personal life, um, you'd be called a metiche. I heard it a lot, especially among family members, um, right? So if your aunt is asking your mom too many questions about this or that, and my mom hung up the phone, then she'd be like, tu tia, your aunt, she's being metiche, she's just kind of, being nosy. I got called a metiche a lot, when I was growing up. So that's a common word in Mexican Spanish, metiche. Um, okay. Um, Lastly, I just want to say maybe a few things to encourage you to try out with regard to Spanish culture, Mexican culture specifically. Mr. Hyland asked that I talk to y'all a little bit about food. So I want to recommend one plate. It's probably my favorite food, my favorite dish, and it's called chilaquiles. Chilaquiles, right? So what are chilaquiles? Well, if you haven't had them before, I suggest you go to a Mexican restaurant and try them. It's essentially tortilla chips cooked with a bunch of salsa, either green or red. Usually, it should be kind of spicy. It should be spicy. Um, and uh, it'll either have scrambled eggs or over easy eggs on top with cotija cheese, which is kind of like a grainy cheese, right? And then if people want, you could put beef or chicken. But that's a common dish. It's a great breakfast dish. Uh, so chilaquiles, chilaquiles. Another food that I would encourage you to try from Mexico is ceviche. If you haven't had it, ceviche, very good thing to try during Lent because it's seafood, and it's kind of like pico de gallo, if you know what that is. So it's a salsa, So you have diced tomatoes, diced onions, diced peppers with lime and salt, and then ceviche will also have it'll also have shrimp, cut diced shrimp in it. But you don't cook it. What cooks the shrimp is the lime. So it's almost raw when you put it in, but then you add a lot of lime, and that's what's gonna cook the shrimp. Ceviche. Very good. Very good. Okay. Well, listen, thank you all for paying attention. I hope that you learned something. I hope you took something away from this video, and I hope you're enjoying. You're enjoying learning Spanish. It's important, right? Um, this country is a diverse country, and a lot of people speak Spanish. And I think if you make the effort to learn the language, you're going to be glad that you did, because you'll be able to participate um, in conversations, in gatherings and events that otherwise, even if you're present, you would be kind of missing out on. It's a beautiful language, and I definitely encourage you to keep going, take more Spanish classes, you know, give your gratitude to Mr. Hyland, who's teaching you all Spanish, who I'm sure is doing a wonderful job. So keep going. Thank you all so much for listening. And Dios los bendiga. All right.